But more often than not, filial piety is weaponized by parents to have their offspring comply without questioning. First, she wants 20% of her income, making you angry about giving her 1/5 of your salary. But bear in mind that they gave you life. If you don't obey, you're unfilial. Hi, I'm your host, Nicole. Some of you might recognize me from this little podcast that I host. I'm really passionate about gender and identity issues, but I also care about the environment, inequality, race, and the many other things that plague our society. And so, I'm starting this new show. Welcome to Agree to Disagree, where we value everyone's opinions. Why? Because differing opinions lead to arguments. Good arguments can lead to scientific breakthroughs, improvement in human welfare, and world peace. Bad arguments, especially on the internet, can lead to whatever this is.
KFC is better.
KFC standard dropped.
Go and see your doctor, please.
If you haven't already noticed, the internet and social media has been a toxic place for some time. Everyone's shouting over each other. And because of that, no one's really listening to one another. Here's what I think. Arguments aren't about winning. They're about listening, learning, growing, and importantly, empathy. I know, empathy isn't easy. What I do is, whenever someone on Facebook says something I disagree or take offense with, I imagine Tony Leong saying it. That's a great question, Tony. Thanks for asking. Personally, I have A-cup boobs, but an F-cup personality. And that's what counts, Tony! Women are more than just a pair of tits! Now our topic today is filial piety, toxic Asian parenting. In April this year, Today Online published this piece on adulting, where a well-meaning journalist shared her journey towards independence by moving out of her parents' home at 32. On one hand, some people felt like this was a non-story, and at 32 was embarrassingly old. But others thought that the author was selfish and ungrateful, and her actions showed that she couldn't care less about the years that her parents invested into raising her. This one's my favourite comment of all. Yes! Make it make sense! With the traction that this piece garnered, and not to mention the emotions that it triggered, you think that the journalist wrote an article titled "Children in Pursuit of Independence. This is why you should disown your parents." But whatever it is, it seems like as a society, we do have a hang-up over the concept of filial piety. I'll let Taiwanese rapper-songwriter Bright Poo explain what filial piety is with hit Mandarin song from the year 2000, 子曰.
Come on, everybody 一起来对父母为孝，对兄弟为悌，对朋友为信，对国家为忠，对人则有爱心。
I hate it. And by hate it, I mean I love it. But not like love, more like hate, love. You know what? I love, hate, love it. So letters are confusing. In this song, Bright Poo sings and raps about Confucius' teachings, which are centered around the concept of ren, essentially telling people to treat each other well to keep society functioning. I know that Confucius was living in a very different time, but let's keep his ideals in mind, because this is where xiao, or filial piety, is supposed to come in, teaching children and parents how to have a harmonious relationship with each other. To be exact, filial piety is defined clearly from Confucianism as the important virtue and primary duty of respect, obedience, and care for one's parents and elderly family members. So filial piety actually sounds great, right? When did it all turn toxic? Now that we know what we're talking about, let's start arguing. With myself. Can we agree to disagree? Is filial piety toxic Asian parenting? One argument, two sides. It's Nicole versus Nicole. Nicole, I know you hate the idea that you have to do something just because of traditional values that your parents got from your parents' parents and your parents' parents got from your parents' parents' parents. Yes, you need to take care of your parents emotionally, spiritually, physically, and financially, and it's not easy at all. But bear in mind that they gave you life and took care of you emotionally, spiritually, physically, and financially as well. And that's not an easy job. Filial piety is about taking care of your parents because you want to, and you want to because they did it for you willingly as well. You were a problematic kid, and some might say you still are. That sounds great in theory, but more often than not, filial piety is weaponized by parents or elderly to have their offspring comply without questioning. How often do you hear about parents forcing children into decisions like pursuing a degree or getting married with the underlying threat, if you don't obey, you're unfilial?
What they actually want is like the full entire day, like how normally people do
Like in the morning, you have tea ceremony, then at night, you have like banquet. Everyone in my family, they also don't really want it, but they do for the sake of doing because my family wants it.
This is just one example of the kind of effect filial piety has on the next generation. How do you think we feel when we're being treated this way? Look, I know that parents aren't always right, but there's an old Chinese saying, 前人栽树，后人乘凉. There is some truth to older equals wiser. I can't be the only one who gets attacked by a random memory about some stupid thing I did at 16 that my parents told me specifically not to do, and then I die of cringe on the spot. There's also a reason why trends like things I would tell my 20-year-old self are all over the internet, because we look to elders for their advice and wisdom for all the years that they've been around. Parents have seen the world and have good advice to offer. More importantly, they mean well. It may not always come out in the best way, but that doesn't make filial piety toxic. But what happens when these dated beliefs and values set us back? In yet another article, this time on the BBC, an Asian American woman shares how strict 9 PM curfews that her parents enforced all the way into her 20s restricted her freedom in making friends with the opposite sex. Today at 25, she feels lonely, awkward, and unable to adapt to society. Isn't that just incredibly sad? The pressure to meet expectations set by your parents so that you can be considered filial can cause you to end up pursuing careers that you simply can't live with. In a popular Reddit thread, r/Asian Parent Stories, a post made almost 3 years ago by a doctor who was forced into this profession revealed that he/she experiences anxiety, stress, and hatred towards their job and life. The world is ever changing, and what our parents want for their children at the end of the day only reflect their own biases and worldview. Children questioning such thoughts can be taken as unfilial, which guilts them into obeying, even though it might actually set them on the wrong path. I hear you, but I have one final point. The core value of filial piety is respect, gratitude, and the importance of family. Professor Werjun Chang claims that it is only when a father behaves as a correct father that a son can be expected to behave as a correct son. So yes, there are bad examples of filial piety, like Adam Khoo asking 12-year-old kids to imagine their parents dying and guilt-tripping them to studying hard. There are also good examples with many ways to show love and respect for your parents other than just providing monetary support. Here's a parent answering a question about how much allowance children should give to their parents.
Not so much.
Are you sure about that?
Based on their income, 20%. Then half you must save for them. Getting married and buy house, you help them a bit.
Being forced to give your parents your hard-earned money only for them to save it up for you instead of spending it, that is modern filial piety in a nutshell. The problem here does not lie with filial piety, but how people have chosen to perceive and apply it. In Confucius' original ideals, filial piety is supposed to help people, parents, and children live harmoniously. Filial piety sounds great in its purest form, but when we apply it in real life, we need to be aware of the effect we have on others. If we truly want the best for each other, we need to learn to question and adapt our own actions and not stick to the ideals for the sake of it. With that, I want to end off with a final piece of wisdom from Bright Poo's song. Hit it!
量子的中心思想是个外的表现是搞不懂就问人，搞得懂就达人，没有人懂还可以问神。如以坏为本体，表现在具体的生活上。Come on everybody， 一起来，要懂得推理，要心存怀疑，要充满好奇，要居心迷疑，要打破砂锅问到底。
Oh my God， 我听不懂，看不懂，学不懂，都不懂，究竟谁对谁错？人生多美，爱情多痛。Please tell me please， 生命有太多疑惑 ，Help me baby， 哦，不要让我自己去摸索。
So, is filial piety toxic Asian parenting? We want to know what you think. Tell us in the comments below, and if you found this video even a bit interesting, be sure to subscribe and share this with your friends, your family, and of course, your parents.